Good evening or afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another weather forecast here by Agent Weather Forecast. And it's going to be another tropical update here on as well Trops from Nicholas and as well MS 95L, as we have a lot to talk about, not only with the overall threats for Texas and Louisiana from Nicholas, but as well the possibility for a threat for the Caribbean from 95L, as well watching out for the newly increasing 50% there in the Bahamas, watching out for the eastern United States as well. So we overall have a ton to talk about with the tropics. But first, let's now go ahead and get a look here at the National Hurricane Center forecast and so see what we have for Nicholas. So Nicholas is now 65 miles an hour with minimal center pressure at 1,000 millibars, and it is now moving north northeast at 12 miles an hour. So the ridge is finally steering it toward a north northeast turn. So it's not going to make landfall near the Brownsville area. Most likely to make landfall just north of Corpus Christi. Going to bring in the worst of the rain out to sea. Let's start bringing in some storms with effects across Brownsville and south eastern coast of Texas. So that's what we have so far. Let's now get a look at the overall advisory and what we have so far from the overall key message. So watching out for some heavy rainfall will impact portions of southeast Texas, Louisiana, and southern Mississippi throughout the middle of the week. Significant rainfall totals are possible, potentially resulting in areas of life-threatening flash and urban flooding, especially in a highly urbanized metropolitan areas. As well, watching out for some minor to isolated moderate river flooding is also expected along the isolated major river flooding across the small river basins and urban areas. So watching out for some further inland flooding as we go further northeastward near Galveston and Houston. There is the danger of life-threatening storm surge along the coast of Texas from Port Aransas to Sabine Pass. Residents in these areas should follow any advice given by local officials. So just that strong counterclockwise flow. We are starting to see some significant storms across portions of Texas already, and this has not even made landfall yet, and it's obviously not going to make landfall for a good few hours here as it moves up the Texas coast. Nicholas is forecasted to approach middle Texas coast as a strong tropical storm this evening and could meet near hurricane intensity at landfall. Tropical storm conditions are expected along portions of the middle and upper Texas coast this evening into tonight, with hurricane conditions possible from Fort Aransas to St. Louis Pass. Let's take a look at the overall discussion, though, for the actual peak forecast. So the peak has not gone up to 70 miles an hour. Like I mentioned yesterday, when the peak was 60, did I mention the possibility that there is a chance that, or actually 65, that there's a chance we could very well see, or there's still a decent shot that we could have got a hurricane. So now the peak has gone up to 70. I don't think we can with a possibility yet that there could be a 75-mile-an-hour hurricane briefly, but I still think it's going to be rather unlikely. But watching out for almost a hurricane, but a rather strong tropical storm at landfall with hurricane wind gusts, as we're looking at 70 miles an hour on the coast, and it's going to gradually weaken quickly at a very fast rate as it's going to be stalling over portions of Texas. Let's now get a look here at Invest 95L as it's officially over water. It now has a 30% for the next 48 hours and an 80% for the next 5 days. Watching out for a tropical wave associated within a trough here, an area of disorganized cloudiness, and thunderstorms. Watching out for an overall area as well as some scattered convection and overall initiation going on here with an area of low. Environmental conditions are forecast to become further conducive and gradual developments likely as we go over the next several days, and a trough depression is likely to form by late this week. While the storm system moves westward at 15 miles an hour across the eastern tropical ocean. So it's gonna have all this good, favorable MDR waters. So this could very well become a hurricane as well. I'm not gonna rule out the possibility that this could possibly become a Category 1 hurricane. And then the overall area of interest right here, the overall low pressure near the Bahamas has a 50% for the next 5 days and a 10% for the next 48 hours. An area of low pressure is forecasted to form by midweek, a couple of 100 miles north of the southeastern or central Bahamas, as a tropical wave interacts with an upper level trough. Some gradual development of the system is possible thereafter. A tropical depression could form later this week while the system moves northwestward or northward across the western Atlantic. So most likely, like I said, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, this would most likely be an out-to-sea storm and not a threat towards the United States. So here's now a look at college's page here on Visible for tropical storm Nicholas. So there's the actual low pressure itself there on that latest convection burst. Obviously, it's very, very lopsided as a result of that shear we're seeing here in that dry air from that ridge, which is obviously north of the axis. And that's going to allow for a limitation or the limiting of any development really on the western quadrant, which is actually the reason why we're not seeing such significant flooding down here. Even it's going to be a little bit further in kind of closer to the actual coast as it rides, and then obviously make landfall near Corpus Christi. But really going to be seeing the worst flooding actually into even Louisiana and northeastern Texas, as it's going to be further symmetrical. And as well, these areas are going to be getting the northern bands very, very soon. So they're actually going to get a ton of rain, while areas near Brownsville and the mouth of Rio Grande is obviously not seeing much initiation, didn't see much rain because of the limiting factor from that shear really limiting any storms or even the wind field expanding further westward. So all that rain and flooding and the worst of the winds are just off the coast at the moment. However, we are still seeing with that strong counterclockwise flow some significant storm surge already for southeastern and south and east central portions of Texas. We see there you see an overall good amount of overall convection as well, a decent outflow channel developing towards the east of the system with some really good westerlies as well coming in from the system, keeping it strong counterclockwise flow. But overall, seeing as well a lot of cloud cover and very thick cloud cover becoming more widespread across Texas, as well that cloud cover is spreading with the divergent upper level anticyclone bringing the cirrus clouds all the way up to areas near Gulfport and even Mobile, Alabama. So definitely seeing a lot of cloud cover from this system. Like I said, a lot of that rain initiation is staying to the eastern quadrant. We're not seeing really much rain on the western quadrant. So right now, obviously, we did not see much rain going on there near Brownsville or even Corpus Christi itself. Right now, the worst of the rain is going to be expected across southeastern Texas and portion there of western Louisiana. As you see, there's a low pressure basically right there, and all that rain sitting on the eastern quadrant because that's where we're seeing the most favorable atmosphere with a lot less upper level shear and dry air threats. As with the ridge, it's bringing some upper level shear, which is kind of tilting the vortex right here, keeping it very, very, very lopsided. So all that rain as it makes landfall here, all that rain is going to be all the way within this area. So watching out for some significant flooding for areas near Lufkin, Tyler, College, the College, what's that? College Park, or no, actually that's College Park. College Park. I forgot the actual. I know it's not College Station because I think it's College Station. They're near College Station. Obviously, Houston, Galveston, you guys are just starting to get some significant rainfall right now. And starting to see some rain as far east as Lake Charles and even Cameron, Louisiana, and even near Beaumont. We're going to continue to see that really widespread and slow moving storm. But as it makes landfall, it's going to be almost basically stationary. So we're going to be seeing very, very significant and widespread flooding, especially far inland. So we're going to really watch out for not only widespread significant storm surge, but as well widespread significant far inland flooding as well, which is why we do have a high risk for flash flooding. So here's latest look at the 5 p.m. Central cone from the National Hurricane Center. And there's the hurricane watches have been obviously issued from basically Corpus Christi all the way up near Galveston, with tropical storm warnings all the way from areas near Corpus Christi all the way up to the border of Louisiana and Texas coast. As you can tell, all of that initiation is staying within the eastern quadrant. You see nothing at all, no tropical storm winds sustained at all whatsoever within the western quadrant because of that ridge and the upper level shear and dry air within it. And honestly, that's going to allow for the steering of it taking it straight towards Louisiana and not going like that, like a typical storm, because with that really strong ridge and the really strong upper level winds, it's going to cause it to kind of just go like that, just following the ridge as it gets pushed northward. So I'm going to stay at the tropical storm as it goes over Houston. So you're going to really watch out for some significant flooding there. And you just base off this, the worst flooding will kind of be over here because obviously that worst storm, the worst rain right now is here. And as it goes this way, it's going to kind of move over here. We're going to really watch out for some extremely significant flooding here across eastern Texas and portions of western Louisiana. And it will not become post-tropical till around Jackson, Mississippi. But you can see it's going to be rather, really, really slow moving there. So really watching out for some significant flooding. Here's the overall look at the timing for these winds. I'm going to start seeing obviously these winds by around 8 o'clock with the 90 to 100% chance for areas of Texas. Obviously, the highest probability is staying just east of the low pressure itself. So anywhere east or northeast of the landfall, like Galveston, for example, or Houston, are going to get hit really, really hard. And that's why you guys are under a very high probability, above a 70%, while areas just off the coast right here are less than within a 50% because of the overall lopsidedness of the system. Here's the look at the storm surge. I did predict yesterday we will get a 3 to 5 foot storm surge, and there it is. Watching out for a chance for 3 to 5 feet from Port O'Connor all the way up to San Luis Pass. As well, also watching 1 to 2 foot storm surge additional from the mouth of Rio Grande to Baffin Bay, and then 1 to 3 foot from Corpus Christi Bay to Baffin Bay, and then 2 to 4 foot storm surge from really San Antonio Bay to Port Aransas to Port O'Connor, and then watching out with storm surge all the way up into areas near Intracoastal Bay and portions there of southwestern Louisiana. So really watching out for the main life-threatening storm surge to be centered specifically within the Galveston Bay, all the way up to Port O'Connor, and as well as St. Louis Pass, watching out from as high as 5. But storm surge, again, consider this is a tropical storm, so definitely going to be pretty significant impacts considering it's only going to be a tropical storm. Although it's almost be, obviously it's almost going to be a hurricane, and it still can't be ruled out the possibility. But again, consider this is only a tropical storm. We have a very high risk of flash flooding here for the next 3 days. So not only do we have a moderate risk here, obviously yesterday we had a slight risk of flooding, and that was kind of from here to here. But now you can see that completely changed now with the slight risk going all the way up to Mississippi with a recent the change in track. As we have a very widespread moderate risk all the way from areas. Obviously, got hit by Ida, obviously New Orleans, and as well watching out from basically Macomb, Mississippi, all the way to Corpus Christi, and then we have a high risk for flash flooding for Galveston and the Galveston Bay. So we have a 50% for flash flooding across far southeastern Texas. So really watching out for extreme flooding here and possibly a threat for 2 feet of rain. So that's going to be day 1 to Tuesday morning. And then through Wednesday morning, a widespread moderate from Beaumont to areas like Lake Charles and Monroe and Alexandria. And then day 3 through Thursday morning, that will extend as the tropical depression moves basically due eastward and watching out for a threat for flooding for Mississippi and as well Louisiana. Here's the overall look at the 1 to 5 day really precipitation forecast. So watching out for a really widespread amount of extreme rain all the way from Alabama to Texas. Obviously, the worst rain will be centered specifically across Louisiana and Texas. I actually would not doubt the high risk for flash flooding does extend further into this area right here. If I'm being completely honest, I could honestly very well see that. And I wouldn't even doubt if Houston gets extended into the high risk. But watching out for 7 to 10 inches across Galveston Bay and scattered areas of 7 to 10 across Louisiana. A really, really widespread amount of over half a foot of rain. Let's take a look at the latest in the M3 kilometer. So obviously watching out for still some significant rainfall totals across Louisiana and Texas for the next few hours. And then that really most intense rainfall will begin overnight across Galveston, Houston, Beaumont, into as well portions there of Lake Charles, Cameron, imagine a vicinity there. So it's going to continue to be a pretty big threat as well, watching out for some really widespread flooding as well and long-term flooding across even Louisiana. You can see really slow moving storm here. Once it gets into Louisiana, you can just see really just constant rain. I mean, all the way from basically the next few hours overnight into much up to March, and there's some just constant rain. So that's going to be a reason why I do think there is a chance for a high risk to move on to Louisiana. Obviously a high risk for flooding, but for some reason my weather bells does not want to load at the moment. But you can kind of get the gist of it of how much flooding we're going to be seeing across Louisiana, not only today, but as well for portions of tomorrow. Here it's starting to load a little bit more, but there you kind of see basically with the next few hours, and then as we go within basically by tomorrow morning, still seeing a really intense rainfall across specifically Texas with some scattered bands, intense areas of rainfall across areas like Morgan City, portions across Baton Rouge, New Orleans. Obviously seeing some more rain with these areas that just got hit by Ida within less than 2 weeks ago. So it's obviously very unfortunate how much rain we're going to be seeing, because this is going to be a significant amount of rain. You can kind of just tell how much rain we're going to be seeing here. It's basically stationary, just seeing rain and rain and rain for basically over 24 hours here. Let's take a look at the overall total precipitation forecast in inches. So let's get a better idea of what we're forecasting here for the Nantucket kilometer. And we're going to have to wait here for when this actually loads, but you can get an idea. There we go. Look at all that rain there. That's a significant amount of rain. Watching out for basically Galveston Bay will probably get hit the hardest rainfall-wise according to the NAM and the Weather Prediction Center. Watching out for basically scattered areas around 8 to 7 inches of rain with even widespread areas of 10, with areas of nearly over a foot off the coast of Texas. You can kind of see the track of this system basically within the rain So like I said, it's going to become further symmetrical, obviously, which is going to allow for the widespread moderate risk we're seeing here. So seeing widespread areas of 7 to 5 to maybe even 6 inches to maybe 7 again. So watching anywhere from 5 to 7 inches, even all the way up into Louisiana and Mississippi, and even Alabama as well. So watching out for some extremely widespread flooding far outside from the actual landfall reference point. So here's a look here at Invest 95 value. You can see the low pressure is basically finally moved over water. It's actually kind of been moving quite quickly. So it's basically within around 16, maybe on its way basically to 7 degrees and 17 degrees west, or around basically around 10-ish degrees north. It's kind of the overall area of the low pressure. You can kind of see how it's kind of gradually made its way over the waters in the MDR. So obviously it's going to be the very beginning of it to the long track here. Let's actually going to look at the overall convection forecast, because we're seeing some overall really good amount of convection that we've actually typically see with these type of tropical waves, that they come off with like negative 80 degrees Celsius for cloud tops. So you can just see a really good amount of convection within this tropical wave. Obviously, really strong trough associated within the central part of the axis, but the low pressure itself is basically just south of all of that convection itself. You can see a really big blob of convection, cloud cover, and overall cold cloud cover as well. So definitely something to keep a very close eye on, with it being like this so early on. Actually, act as we can get a better idea of the tropical wave associated within MS95L, and that's exactly where it is right here. Basically, there's that big bursting overall moisture. There's the tropical wave basically. Obviously, there we're seeing the overall African easterly wave right here with areas of obviously this amount of moisture. And that's exactly where it is as well. There is Nicholas, and there's the MS95L basically right there. You can see really big bursting overall moisture and convection. Obviously, it's low pressure is basically just off the coast of Africa now. And obviously, going to really keep a close eye on it as it goes into the long-term effect of whether it can be a Larry 2.0 or a bust like a Gonzalo 2.0 or Josephine 2.0. So keeping an overall very close eye on this storm. So here's a look at the latest, the actually first advisory here on the intensity guidance on 18Z, and there you see on 95L, the majority want to have this get it to a rather strong tropical storm or even a category 1. Like I did say, this could definitely not be without the possibility to be a hurricane based on its conditions. So you might want to have this form to a tropical storm within the next 48 hours, well, if you want to have it for the next 84 hours. But overall, watching out for the increasing chance of formation as a tropical depression within the next 48 hours. So we will see once it's over water how it progresses, and whether the convection continues on the trend, or whether once it goes over waters, it's going to decrease. However, again, it's going to be going through overnight right now, so that should allow for maybe a general maximum or further organization within this low pressure, and overall just a better development and hopefully a low circulation. So we're actually going to look at the overall ensembles and what they're showing. So there's the overall wave right there. It's a little bit behind because obviously this is looking at 12Z. So there's all the miles. There are 1,010, 1,008 millibars with anywhere from 20 to 30 to 30 to 40 knots. And then once you kind of get past within around maybe 200 miles from the actual coast of Africa, a few of the members actually get it within 40 to 50 knots, and as well pressure within 1,002 to 1,003 millibars. As we now get later on with the next 90 hours, there you see a few yellows popping up within that's 50 to 60 knots. So it's obviously basically a high-end tropical storm with pressure nearly in triple digits. So really still pretty confident within it getting to a hurricane, or at least a strong tropical storm early on in the MDR. And then we start to see some pretty good purples popping up with pressure really dropping 977, 972, 979. So pressure is really dropping. You can kind of see that's within 60 to 70 knots, which will obviously be in the higher end a weak category 1. But look at that really good overall or confidence within the ensembles based on yesterday. However, again, yesterday's ensembles were obviously a lot more aggressive. We saw like some 940s and 950s, but obviously likely to go out to see like Larry.